The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Mike, the earliest memories right there. I'm looking at my earliest memories of UHF television up in New York, and it's I'm getting the fuzz, and I'm trying to get Gordon Soley. He's talking to me. I'm a teenager, and wrestling is like the center of my universe, and there he is, Eric Embry.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Hey, was that Rip Rogers I saw on here a while ago?
That was Rip Rogers, yes.
Yeah. Love Rip. Hadn't seen him for so many years. Wow.
See, Mike, he likes Rip. You see that?
I like him.
No, on the previous show, Jimmy and I were talking, Eric, because you know Eddy Mansfield, right?
Oh yeah, Fast Eddie.
So Eddie's going to have a show on our channel, and Eddie said to me, "You got to stop playing that Rip Rogers video. It's just awful."
It might need some editing. If that's what he's talking about, okay, we can start there. Like, we could edit it maybe, perhaps. But I like Rip.
I do too. Goes back to the old days when I think it was ICW, the Papos were trying to start a territory in Kentucky, and that's where I hooked up with Rip a lot.
Came across Rip. How do we start in the first place? What gets you into pro wrestling in the first place?
Well, I give my grandmother the credit because I stayed with her a lot growing up while the parents were working. And when wrestling came on Saturdays, you didn't bother that woman. If her house was on fire, you didn't bother her till wrestling went off. And I think that piqued my interest about 8, 9, 10 years old.
Eric, so you want to become this wrestler, right? And, you were great on the mic, but you were a smaller guy, right, in an industry at the time where, there were monsters in every region, right? Forget about up here. Me and Jimmy grew up on the WWE stuff, and we know that's where all the monsters were. But even where in all the areas you wrestled, what made you even think you had a chance to be a wrestler?
Well, I just, I can't ever remember wanting to do anything else in life growing up. And it never entered my mind that I couldn't do it. I knew my whole life. I knew I was going to do it. And I just had to figure out how to be good at it. And thankfully, I hooked up with Lou Thez very, very early into my career. And Lou opened a lot of doors for me.
How does that happen? Because when I read that today, of course, we always try to prep best we can when we talk to legends of the past, especially when we were kids, for God's sake. How do you come across Lou Thez? Because to me, if you're a true historian and you're doing a Mount Rushmore, if it doesn't have a name like Thez on it, does it even have any validity anyway? How do you come across Lou Thez?
Well, I was working a little independent show that had brought him in, and I met his wife outside, and Miss Charlie, and Miss Charlie and me just hit it off, and she liked me. And then that old grumpy, grouchy Lou Thez had no choice but to like me because Charlie liked me. And Lou and I became very close friends, very, very good friends.
How do you feel, for guys like me and Jimmy, of course, Lou Thez is a huge name still to this day. How do you feel that a lot of these legends are starting to fall in today's wrestling fans? They don't even know who Lou Thez is. So how does that make you feel, even with you guys when you're wrestling? People at this point, a lot of wrestling fans don't know the difference about...
You're cutting out on me a whole lot, but...
How about now? Is that working any better?
I'm hearing you now, yeah.
So the question is, how do you feel like legends like Lou Thez or legends like yourself are being forgotten by today's wrestling fans? Do you think wrestling is not, when you only got two of them, aren't giving enough history lessons to the wrestling fan?
Well, I look at it differently than the way you put the question. To me, there are very, very few wrestling fans left. Today's fans are not wrestling fans because for the two big ones you say, that those are not professional wrestling companies anymore. They're not selling you wrestling. They're selling you a circus. They're selling you acrobatic. Everything is so scripted. They're selling you a Hollywood movie, and I'm not knocking the talent today at all because they're doing the job the way the bosses want them to do it. But it's not professional wrestling. Professional wrestling has been dead and buried, and whether it resurrects again is the $1 million question. So there's two sets of wrestling fans in the world today now. The ones that remember the old times when we used to try to convince you that it was real no matter what it took, and the countless number of hard ways I did to accomplish that. And then there's the people today that is 100%, as Vince called it, sports entertainment. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. And do you blame Vince McMahon for that, or do you think it just would have been
how it was
100%?
No, 100%. When Vince got USA Network from me out of Southwest in wrestling in San Antonio, Texas, when he took that over, all of us old timers laughed at him because he had this big dream. But oh, were we wrong? The David Schultz slap on the news guy. All that was purposely set up to expose the wrestling business. And Vince, well, I mean, his bank account shows you how successful he was upon pulling that off.
So are you trying to say, Eric, that Vince set that all up to be able to get away from the commission? It was all part of a grand plan?
Sure, 100%. I mean, I was in the mix back then. These guys are my buddies. Of course it was. David was set up, and the sad part is Vince made him take the fall. Vince didn't come in and save him from taking the fall.
Jimmy, just 1 second. I just want to ask about, we just mentioned Eddy Mansfield. Was Eddy Mansfield part of that plan with Vince McMahon?
No, I don't think Eddy was. Eddy was mad because he was running out of places to work and so forth. And Eddy was a good talent, but Eddy was Eddy's worst enemy at times also. And kind of like Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump, but Eddy didn't keep his lips together sometimes when he should have.
What, just because Iran and Israel don't know what the fuck they're doing? What are you saying?
That's right. That's right, brother. That's right.
There you go. Actually, Mike, I was going to ask about Mansfield, and I feel like Vince was it's almost like what Vince did with ECW. When Heyman had that little ECW, Vince was taking notes and absorbing ideas. And I almost feel like Vince, who was always great on the fly, he could react to something and find a way to spin it in his favor. With the Mansfield thing, Mansfield falls to the side because of what occurs between.
Yeah, Eddy was mad at the wrestling business itself.
Right.
And Eddy stabbed his friends in the back because we didn't have anything to do with what Vince was doing. Vince was carrying out his big scope of things, but Eddy exposed us people that were trying to make a living and stabbed us in the back. I mean,
so it's fair to say, Eric, that you were mad at Eddy for doing this then, where to not to defend Eddy, but Eddy on our show said that he did it for the boys, not to hurt the boys. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, in his mind, he really might have thought he did that to help the boys, but it really didn't help us. It exposed us.
Eric, is it surprising though that when we've